What's up, people? We're Hannah Smoking Mirrors. Welcome back to another podcast episode.
If you don't know, I'm Riker,
I'm M.
and we're psychic mediums, and we talk about all sorts of,
Metaphysical
me-
BS.
yeah, I don't know. We talk about a lot of things like Ouija boards,
Paranormal ghosts.
Ouija boards,
Mediumship.
Ouija boards, every.
That's all I got.
So-
Metaphysical
I
background.
mean, this is technically podcast 5, so
Yes.
we're still like building up. But we have
Mhm.
other content besides just podcasts. But in terms of podcasts, we talk about Ouija boards like twice.
Yeah.
We play a
We
lot with
do
Ouija boards. Yeah.
about Ouija boards more than once.
Yeah, because we talked about it in the first podcast and in podcast number 4.
Well, because people got upset that we were using Ouija boards.
I know, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, we used a Ouija board because they told us to start a podcast. And then people were like, "Oh my god, you're talking to demons!" And we're like, "Yeah, we know." And they're like, "They're causing your life to fall apart." And we're like,
No, they're not.
"No, they're not. I don't think I'm doing that."
But if you want to know what we're talking about, go and watch the last episode of the podcast or
Yeah.
listen to it on whatever,
All of the podcast.
all of it. But that's one specifically is what we're referencing.
Mm-hmm.
But today we're talking about discerning entities. And if you don't know how this works, our podcast is very much we come up with a title of the
Yeah.
podcast,
A sentence.
and that is all we have to go on as we ramble away and talk about whatever topic we decide
We
for
need
the
like
title.
a clickbaity title that is for discerning entities.
True. We don't really have one right now.
We know the topic is discerning
Discerning
entities.
entities.
And the reason is because since we did the last podcast where we talked to demons through a Ouija board, people are now concerned that we don't know who we're talking to or about, and that spirits are like tricking us and telling us that there are spirit guides, but actually they're dark entities that are trying to ruin our lives. I think that stems from Sakuna potentially. I don't know. Because
Everyone
people also think it's like my black spirit guide.
everyone thinks that we can be like we work with Archangel Michael and people are like
Are you
wrong.
sure?
It's a demon and
It's
we're
a
like, "Oh,
demon.
okay." I don't know. There's a lot of
Mhm.
I've noticed especially in like the medium community,
Mhm.
mediums often argue with each other about I don't know, like if you say you work with Michael and it doesn't align with a different medium's perception of what Michael is, they will just flat out be like, no, that's not who you're talking to, you're wrong. Which feel is weird because,
How are you talking to
yeah,
Archangel Michael, but
but
we're not talking to Archangel Michael type thing, right?
yeah, there's I mean, it's spirituality, so everyone's experiences are gonna be different, and that's I feel like the beauty of spirituality.
Yeah, but
But the amount of people who are like, your experience doesn't fully match mine,
yeah,
therefore I'm gonna tell you how you're wrong in every way.
yeah, the issue is don't use your experience to invalidate other people.
Yeah,
That's not spirituality.
because if I don't know, I work with Loki.
Yeah.
A lot of people work with Loki. How I work with Loki is different than how other people work with Loki because it's more tailored individually to
Mhm.
me, which is completely fine. But I don't say that's not how I work with Loki, so therefore it's wrong.
I also feel
That's
like Loki is a good example because he's the trickster god, and everyone on witch talk and stuff like that talk about, are you sure it's Loki? Are you sure it's not someone else? Or if you're talking to someone else, are you sure it's not Loki talking to you? Because he's trying to trick you and deceive you that he's
yeah.
actually someone else.
Which I know that he's considered a trickster deity in some lore.
Mm-hmm.
Most actual lore about Loki doesn't he's a trickster, but not in the way that people view him as. I feel like a lot of people view him as a this a trickster because of the Marvel shows.
Oh, yeah.
Because
That makes sense.
he's I don't know, the actual Loki versus the Loki in Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously it's a media depiction.
Mm-hmm.
So there's influence from the actual Loki,
Yeah.
but it's a lot there's changes
Different.
to it.
Mm-hmm. So it fits the story.
But I don't know, whenever first started working with Loki and trying to research deity work with Loki, the amount of people who are you have to be careful that it's not something else tricking you
Yeah.
and it's just
Or that it's not Loki tricking you.
yeah, which I guess I don't know. never felt like I've been like being tricked by Loki.
Well, from my I don't know, from my mediumship abilities, because I don't know a lot of the like actual mythology surrounding Loki.
Mm-hmm.
I only know the media interpretation of him. So when I talk to like Loki the god who is not associated to Marvel whatsoever, he tells me that he's associated to entropy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why people associate him as the trickster god, is because people don't understand the idea of randomness.
Yeah, that would make more sense.
So I don't know, talking to Loki, he's not one to be like, oh, let me pretend that I'm someone else. He's like very obsessed with himself.
Yeah,
He wants you to know it's him.
yeah, I don't know. That's
So it's
that's been
confusing.
my experience, especially like doing deity readings for other people. When Loki is around, he
He's
makes
like,
himself
hello.
known. Like he might trick you in like more personal ways, but
Yeah.
he's not going to pretend to be someone
Some,
else. I feel like there's a lot of like weird fear mongering
yeah.
around like being tricked by like entities. Because
Yeah.
obviously, like, there are like trickster things and things that will try to like fuck with you,
Mhm.
but it's, I don't know, it's the same as like demonic attachments. It's not as like common as I feel
Yeah,
like
because I don't
people
know.
think it is.
This idea or concept, I think, mostly stems from us using Ouija boards and talking to a spirit guide that we refer to as Sakuna. So he told us that he wants to be called Sakuna. Sakuna is a name from like anime.
Yeah,
And the reason why he calls himself that is because he wants to affiliate himself with the connotations of the character from that anime.
yeah,
So this spirit guide is not a like an I don't know what to say, like a typical thing that you would presume would be someone's spirit guide.
yeah.
He's rude, he's rash, he's seems very much like a negative entity. He's not hiding it, he's not pretending to whatever. He like very much has the persona of like a dark entity, demon, Daemon, whatever.
Yeah. Also, when it comes to like spirit guides, that is like because that's what like we
Yeah,
need. So it's not like
yeah.
a dark thing tricking us. Like we need that energy because like we're not okay. So it's a very much like, why the fuck are you crying?
Mhm.
Like you're
Do
fine.
something
Do
about it.
something about it instead of like sitting there moping. Pick your ass up and do something about it.
Yeah, stop ignoring all of your feelings, do things. But we have a lot of people, like, especially like mediums, that are coming in and are like, that's not your spirit guide, that's a dark entity, and you're listening to him, so he's ruining your life.
Yeah, we've had a lot of comments
Yeah,
too, just about how like we don't know who we're talking about, like
yeah,
who we're talking to, and we need to like learn more, which again I find extremely like invalidating
yeah.
because like while I may not have been like you've been like in this like the content sphere of this longer than I
Hmm.
have, like but I've been practicing spiritual stuff for a
Hmm.
long ass fucking time.
Hmm.
So like it's very, I don't know, like we've had talks about it, but you don't always see what content creators put online. You don't see
Yeah,
everything that happens. So
you
it's
get
just,
very like snippets
yeah.
of everything.
So, because like I've even seen like comments saying that like we don't like actually like our only reference of like Marvel or like the Norse
Hmm.
gods is because of Marvel. And I'm like,
Yeah,
actually, no. I
yeah.
like study like I got introduced to mythology through Percy Jackson, which like is yes like a media thing. But
Hmm.
then I went and like researched. I've
Hmm.
taken like college courses on mythology. Like I read a lot about mythology. Like I'm fairly well versed in mythology. But I
Yeah.
also think it also is fine if you aren't super well versed in like the mythology around
Hmm.
things. Because newsflash, not all the mythology is 100% accurate.
Yeah.
If you like,
Yeah, people get really mad about that.
yeah, like I'm sorry, if you ask Hades about his mythology surrounding Persephone, he has strong opinions about how he's portrayed about it, but that's a whole other story. It's another podcast.
Yeah,
But
but I don't know, people don't see the full picture because we don't talk about the full picture. So us sitting here talking about some entity that puts us in a bubble and prevents us from being able to see things or do quote unquote mediumship or like preventing activity. People like view that and they're like, oh, they're sucking the energy out of the room. That's a negative entity type thing. We're also not going to sit here and give you context of the last like two,
6
three
months.
months
Yeah.
of working with this spirit guide and what he's actually
Yeah.
doing.
'Cause, like, he stepped forward in, like, February?
Yeah.
Like, end of January, early February.
And we knew he was going to step
Yeah,
forward
and we
before he
we
did.
knew about him for months prior,
Yeah.
and he was telling us, like, that he wasn't going to step forward until the time was right,
Yeah.
and he very much would
Mhm.
not, because it was harder to talk to him, and then he stepped forward at the right moment in our lives,
Mhm.
and then started talking to us, and even when we, like, tried to explain the bubble to people, like you said, they think that it's, like, sucking all the energy out. It literally is just, like, putting, like, a little bubble around that comes and goes. It's not like it's a constant thing. We don't feel physically drained. We're not
No.
being physically affected.
It
Our
literally is just
mediumship still works.
preventing paranormal activity.
Yeah, like, our mediumship still works.
Mhm.
It's almost like I don't know, it's like if you were in, like, a building and, like, you see someone outside of a window, like,
Mhm.
across
Yeah,
the
I heard.
street. That is what it feels like when we're in the bubble. Like, you can still see things. You could, like,
They just like won't come over to you because they can't use
because they
their
can't get yeah,
energy.
because they can't get
They're
into the
like in a
building.
little vacuum.
Yeah, so it's not as, like
And he's not sucking the energy out to like use it for doom plans. Like he
no.
doesn't need the energy.
Yeah. Mm,
He's doing it for a very specific reason to guide us to the places where we're supposed to be. He's
yeah,
not forcing us to go anywhere. We have the choice to do that.
yeah. He's never like, Sukuna has never once, like it's not like he, like, holds a gun to our head and is like, "Do this or else."
Or like causes us like pain, stress,
No.
whatever.
It is literally like, "Here's, like I am, like, shining a light down the path
Yeah.
you should go on. It is up to you
Hmm.
to go down that path or to turn the light off or go
Yeah.
somewhere else. You can do whatever the fuck you want."
He
Because
just
free will
does
is a
it
thing.
a lot more physically than other spirit
Yeah.
guides because
There's a lot more direction.
we need that.
Yeah. But he's not dictating our lives,
Nope.
he's not controlling our
Mhm.
lives, he's not manipulating us,
Yeah.
like, we
And
like
he's doing those things to help us figure out what we're supposed to do in ghost hunts
yeah,
because what we're doing is helping souls.
yeah,
So he's just directing us to the places in the location to do that. Does that
yeah,
sound like a dark entity?
yeah,
To
ex
me, they would
exactly.
do the opposite. They would be causing more activity and like dark demonic activity, throwing things at us.
Mhm, exactly.
And it's not like that. He's not trying to harm us at all. He's literally trying to benefit us, our
Yeah,
channel, helping people. That is very much the
yeah,
opposite of what
and
the perception is.
if we, for one instant, felt like he was something negative trying to harm us, we would not let him stick around.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's also what people don't realize is obviously, like, there's only glimpses in content that you guys get to fully see of
Hmm.
everything. And I know we make a lot of content, but even like, let's say our ghost hunt, we'll have like 20 hours of footage.
Hmm.
'Cause we'll be filming for like from when we get into the car and like leave the house to when we get back. Like
Yeah.
sometimes,
So a lot of times our videos seem more active than it actually was when we were there.
yeah. But like for like Randolph, for instance,
Hmm.
we started investigating and like doing all of our stuff at 5 p.m.
Hmm.
When we left at 5 a.m.,
Yeah.
we were constantly filming
Yeah.
and only so that's 12 hours on location filming, multiple cameras doing all these locations, and only an hour and a half of that made it to the final video.
That's how YouTube works.
Yeah, that is how YouTube works.
So
So,
you get the important part, but you miss a lot of the context of how it
yeah,
came that way.
exactly. So, you don't see like everything, and then I don't know, like there are times where like we go to investigations and like we talk to either souls or even dark things that like are scary, that make us uncomfortable, that we don't want to talk to,
Mhm.
and we don't talk to them.
Yeah.
If you see us like communicating with anything, that means we feel safe and comfortable to do so,
Yeah.
and we know what it is.
Yeah, like for example, I think you left this in the video, but when we went to Madison, I was up in the asylum area by myself
Mhm.
and there was some weird dude like haunting me, like looking down at me because I was sitting on the floor taunting me and I was like, "You can leave. I'm not trying to talk to you. I'm trying to talk to the things that are over by my equipment. You don't need to fuck with me."
Yeah,
But we also were at Fairfield talking to the me demon
yeah,
because the me demon wasn't trying to be like malicious.
yeah,
He was talking to him about why he was there.
yeah, and was telling us things, and
Yeah.
part of that was also because of our spirit guide,
Yeah.
Sakuna.
Mhm.
Like, Sakuna very much protected us so we could talk
Mhm.
to the me demon.
Because if you guys don't know much about us or our spirit guides, Sukuna is a high-ranking angel. He is considered a seraphim, and the context of that is that they have the most energy, highest ranking angel association to him. So that's why he's able to pull the energy out of the room. That's why he's able
Mhm.
to do very physical things. That's why he's able to protect us from like the me demon.
Yeah, I don't know, and it's just I don't know, it frustrates me when, like, people invalidate and say that, like, we don't know what we're doing just
Yeah.
because they have differences of opinions, and if you, like, have a different opinion in what we do and you don't necessarily agree fully with what we do or how we go about things, that is completely okay. Like, I have no issue with, like, differences in opinions.
Mhm.
Like, spirituality is a very, like, broad thing.
Yeah.
It's going to look different for every single person. If you don't wanna use a Ouija board, don't use a Ouija board, we've talked about it a lot.
Yeah.
But to say that, like, we don't know who we're talking about, we don't know what we're doing, that's where I, like, get frustrated because 'cause I'm like, "How if you are only hearing us retell the story after the fact,
Mhm.
how do you fully know about the experience that
Yeah.
we've
How do
had
you
and
know
how?"
what we know about the entities you're talking to?
Yeah,
Because we've had people tell us about Sukuna and are like, Sukuna is a dark entity. How do you know he's not bad? Also, like, why are you working with something you guys think is like on the darker spectrum? But we've also had people talk to my black spirit guide, Houdini.
mhm,
And we feel like Houdini is the one that like puts the bubble around us, but that's kind of like it helps to create focus on what we're supposed to be doing and not being distracted by the things around us. So people see Houdini, they don't know who Houdini is, so they think that he's doing all these horrible things because he deals with darkness. He deals with association. He deals with dark
and yeah,
elements of humanity.
trauma, things like that.
So again, people don't know the context of this entity spirit guide and are like, this is also a dark entity because he's used to dealing with these sort of things. But like, we already know who he is. We already know what he's doing. He's associated to me. He's a spirit guide. He's helping me with dissociation. I talk to him often. I don't tell you guys about it because it deals with my dissociated traumas.
Yeah, it deals with very personal things to
Yeah,
you. Those aren't all going to be shared on the internet.
yeah, but that doesn't make him a dark entity.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that you don't know
Know that.
who you're talking to,
Yeah.
like, I've drawn your spirit that's I've
Mhm.
drawn Houdini.
Mhm. Yeah, and he told me his name was Houdini through
Mm,
the Vox app,
yeah, yeah,
like
mhm.
the Vox Spirit Talker
Yeah, the
app
Ghost Tube
from.
Box app from Amy's Crypt.
Mhm.
Mhm,
Literally was like clear as day because it was like the phonetical one where it doesn't have like a word bank. It literally just makes up like phonetical
yeah,
word sounds and brings like words together. So it
mhm,
said Houdini.
yeah,
So yeah, that's where I got the name from, and I was like, oh, it's exactly what you do, isn't it?
mhm. Yeah, I don't know, it's just very, like I don't know, I get frustrated just because I don't know, like, I do de-identification readings,
Yeah.
so I have to be able to discern the differences between
Mhm.
several different gods,
Yeah.
goddesses,
Well, how do you do that?
clairsentience mostly. Clairsentience, claircognizance.
Mhm.
Those I would say those are the two. Like usually my clairsentience triggers my claircognizance. So I get a feeling whenever I'm talking to us like whatever deity, let's say Hades. I will get a feeling, and that feeling will trigger, like, my
Thoughts.
claircognizance to just know who
Mhm.
it is when I'm talking to them.
Yeah. So figuring out or discerning entities is very much associated to learning about energy and energy signatures. So how energy presents.
Yeah.
So the easiest way for me to explain it to someone that does not realize their mediumship ability is I have a different feeling or vibe to Riker
Mhm.
and vice versa. So like my personality, my feelings, my emotions, that sort of thing all put together makes up my energy signature.
Mhm.
And there can be like slight differences based upon what's going on in my life where my energy signature might change a bit. But for the most part, you would be able to tell it's me by the general feeling of this is my personality. And
Mhm.
the same thing goes for you, and it's different than mine.
Yeah. And we can be similar in,
Hmm.
like, 'cause, you and I are similar in a lot of
Yeah.
ways, but
But
we are
again,
still
it's
different
different.
because we are still unique.
Yeah, it's like I don't know, the example that you use with like Coke and
Yeah,
Pepsi,
I was gonna get into that.
it's the same, it's supposed to be the same flavor, but there are slight differences.
Yeah, 'cause so I explain how I discern entities by using, like, sodas,
Hmm.
because I feel like it's the easiest and, like, broadest way for other people to
Yeah,
understand.
it's easy to explain.
'Cause I don't, like, discern deities through taste, 'cause
Yeah, yeah,
that would
yeah.
be weird. I
You
feel like
you
you
can,
can, but that
if
would be
that's your
weird for me.
ability. Yeah.
I don't wanna do that, that's weird for me. Um, but I use the analogy of, like, sodas, so let's say you have Hades, who is the Greek god of the underworld,
Mhm.
and Pluto, who is the Roman god of the underworld. They are counterparts to each other, but they are both still different individual
Yeah,
beings. They have slight differences. So I equate those to Hades being Coke and Pluto being Pepsi.
yeah.
They are
Same flavor,
same
but just
flavor.
slightly
Yeah,
different tasting.
because I think it was I might be mixing them up, but I think it was like Coke came first and what was warm, and so cold Pepsi is supposed to taste like warm Coke or
Mhm.
something like that, or vice versa.
Yeah,
Again,
yeah,
I might
yeah.
be
I remember
messing
you telling me about
up.
that.
Yeah. So there's differences in flavors. And then if you have like Coke products, or let's say even like root beer, like there's different brands of root beer. There's like AW, Barks, Mug root beer. Like
Mhm. They all have like different tastes.
they're all root beer, but they all have slight differences.
Mhm.
Deities and like even like not even just deities, every like entity, spiritual being,
Mhm.
whatever, has like their like unique like flavor or taste to
Mhm.
them.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I'm identifying a deity, once I identify the deity and know the deity, every time they come up, I just know who it is because I'm familiar with them.
Mhm.
If it's a new deity, I learn their signature. I have a feeling of kind of what it is, because for me, like, I'm still using the deities just because it's the easiest, I feel like,
Yeah.
because there's pantheons and groups, so it's easier to, like,
It's
lump things
easier to
together.
use to explain
Yeah,
energy signatures.
yeah, but, like, Greek deities and Norse deities
Yeah.
are 2 different pantheons, so they feel very different. So if I'm talking to someone like a Greek deity, they will trigger that clairsentient feeling in me that makes me know, "Okay, I'm talking to a Greek deity."
Yeah.
And then if it's especially if it's someone like I don't know, they'll trigger that, and then I'll get information, okay, like, are they, like, chthonic? And chthonic is, like, dealing with, like, the underworld and stuff.
Mhm.
So chthonic feels like a darker, like,
Mhm.
a slightly darker, like Hades falls under that.
Yeah.
Because if you compare Hades to Zeus, they feel very different. Zeus is an Olympian,
Mhm.
Hades is a chthonic deity.
Yeah.
So they have differences. So it's just, at least for me, it's through my clairsentience, I've like fine-tuned it to be able to like pick up the subtleties in the different energies. So
Yeah.
deities have a specific feeling, and angels and archangels and seraphs have a different feeling.
Mhm.
Daemons, dark things have a different thing. Human souls have a different feeling. So
Yeah.
each of them have different like broad feelings that let me know I'm talking to a soul, a dark thing, an angel, or a
Mhm.
deity. And then once I get into whatever bucket it is, it breaks down more until I can discern who it is.
Yeah.
And claircognizance helps that.
Mhm.
I don't know if that made any sense.
No,
Sorry.
it does. That's why I'm asking because I want people to know how they can discern entities themselves.
Yeah.
Because it's like the more you develop your mediumship abilities, the more you'll be able to differentiate or learn your like cues to figure out when you're talking to a dark entity
Mhm.
versus a soul. So, like, there's 6 psychic clairs, and the ones that are triggered in this sort of sense are going to be the ones that are probably more strong for you,
Yeah.
but it can happen in any one of those 6 senses. So, like we were talking about earlier, you might taste if someone has ill intentions or maybe they're a dark
Yeah.
entity, you might taste something bitter,
Yeah, it might leave a bitter, sour taste in your mouth.
or it can be a sour smell.
Mhm.
For me, I get a lot of claircognizance that gets filtered down my other clairs. It's a
Mhm.
big combination of claircognizance, which is knowing, and clairsentience, which is feeling. So first off, I will feel what their energy is like, and claircognizance and clairsentience usually translates into some sort of visual representation of them.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily what they look to a T, but it is signs and symbols to help me understand better because that's how my brain works.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when I'm talking to a soul, for example, like if we're at the Conjuring house, I remember specifically talking to Amanda when we were there together, and she asked me, "Well, how do you know this man is like not a dark, like is a dark entity versus not a dark
Mhm.
entity?" And one of the triggers that they show me is my sign or symbol for something being a dark entity are two things. It's glitchy. They will look or appear glitchy,
Mhm.
or they will have their eyes glowing.
Mm.
And if their eyes are glowing and I'm perceiving them, oh, they look like a man or they look like a child, and one of these two things are happening, I'm like,
Yeah.
no, you're not.
Yeah.
And then there's also the clairsentient feeling, and this again is dependent on the entity itself. If it is something very, very small on a like negative entity sort of energy level, they feel very like sputtery, skittery.
Mhm.
It's like they don't have a lot of energy to make themselves like solid.
Yeah.
So they have a like sort of feeling to them.
Mhm.
Um, and then that can't be the like all end all be all idea of this is what a dark entity feels like because there are more solid things like Sakuna. Sakuna has a very solid,
Mhm.
smooth, calming energy. So you can't be like, oh, they don't have a sputtery energy, so they're not a dark entity.
Yeah.
So there are other affiliations. So like I get a lot of visual representations because I get the feeling of, oh, you're dark, but are you going to do something to me? Why do you feel this way? And they'll usually show me things that are based upon signs and symbols
Mhm.
that are tied to the knowing information I already know about them.
Yeah.
So like Sakuna, for example, he has black eyes, and that tells me he's a daemon.
Mhm.
So the same thing with Beelzebub. He has black eyes tells me that he's a daemon because his energy is very smooth. So
Mhm.
he's not going to glitch. His eyes don't necessarily need to glow. He's not like something trying to look like a person. He's a dark and like a daemon, and he doesn't have an interest in
Yeah.
pretending to be anything else.
Yeah.
Because from my experience, the things that want to pretend to be like something nice and familiar
Like the lower ranked dark
are
souls.
the things that need energy.
Yeah.
So the things that need energy are the lower ranking dark entities.
Yeah.
So they are the ones that need to, because they're like up here with us, they have to like raise their energy to a point where their energy has a hard time like sticking together. It's kind of like if you took water and you wanted water to be up in the sky, it's going to become a gas.
Yeah.
So it's not as solid and it needs to continue to have energy in order to maintain its shape.
Mhm.
So the same thing happens with dark entities that don't have a lot of like energy associated to them, which is why people fearmonger and are like, they need like dark energy to continue existing. Those are generally the things that like look like human-esque things,
Yeah.
and a lot of times those are also associated to people's fears. Of,
Yeah.
oh, I'm afraid of little girls that are like spirits because
Yeah.
there are just things looking like a dark
Yeah.
entity, so it takes that form.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like a lot of the times, if you're like, it's the same as the Ouija board conversation. If you're scared and like convinced that there's going to be something that comes and tricks you to harm you,
Mm-hmm.
you're more likely to call those types of things to you to trick you, to harm you.
Yeah.
But I've, and obviously, like, I don't want it to seem like I'm saying that it will never happen because these things do exist. They can trick you, harm you. but it's like 1 in a million.
I feel like the 1 in a million thing that you're talking about is very much like something that's good at succeeding at doing
Yeah,
that.
I would say good at succeeding and trying to personally do it to you. Because
Yeah.
if you go to,
Mhm.
like, a ghost haunted location,
Yeah.
you're more likely to run into them,
Yeah.
but it's
'Cause there's always a
very
little girl.
obvious to me.
'Cause there's always a little girl. The little girl actually is a real person, but because people are afraid of a little girl spirit, they, like, manifest a dark version of them. But again, to me, everyone knows that they're, like, a dark entity, so then what's the fucking point, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, I don't know, it's just, like
The ones that are good at it are a dime a dozen.
yeah,
Yeah.
and again, it's the same thing as Ouija boards of if you just, like, know you're, like, protected and you have that, like, white light, that faith,
Mhm.
you're you're not gonna, like, run into those things in a way that's going to, like, cause harm to you.
Well, you're not I'm sorry, this is rude. You're not as gullible, so why would they try? I'm sorry.
No, no, but exactly. 'Cause I feel like like, when we use Ouija boards, people are always like, "Well, how do you know who you're talking to?" And it's we have, like, we talked about, like, discussed our discernment, like, how we
Mhm.
can know these things, how we, like
Yeah, especially with the Ouija boards, you can feel the
mhm,
energy going through the planchette, and
yeah,
it moves differently.
yeah, so
That's an energy
yeah,
signature.
because 'cause we'll be talking to, like, Asmodeus, let's say,
Yeah,
and if
very
someone
quick and concise for
yeah,
him.
and if someone else decides to, like, suddenly come through, we
Mhm.
immediately know because it
It moves
feels different, it
differently.
moves differently.
Uh-huh.
So it takes a lot of practice, I would say, to, like, get comfortable, like, trusting that. Because when I
Yeah.
first started this, I was very much, like, not as good at discerning
Mhm.
things. Deities I could do just because
You've been doing that for
I've been
so long.
doing deities for so long, but, like, dark entities, souls, things like that took a little bit longer, but the more I just kept practicing that,
Yeah.
the easier it got. It's
Mhm.
just
It's just learning your tells, learning your
yeah,
signs and symbols.
yeah, because I don't know, I learned very quickly that clairsentience is one of my strongest clairs.
Mhm.
So, feeling things, feeling energy signatures, like, in my body
Yeah.
and in my gut tells me what it is.
Mhm.
So and if it's, like, a dark negative thing that is, like, trying to, like, be tricky or potentially harm or anything like that, it triggers in my back.
Mhm.
Like and
Like the
it's
evil eye in your back.
yeah, it's very much like
That's what I
almost
think
like
of
there's
it
someone,
as.
like yeah, like someone, like, staring you in the back of your head. That is how I can tell that it's something dark or malicious towards me
Mhm.
because at least for me, if something is trying to trick me, they need to come from behind.
Mhm. No, that makes sense.
Because if I can see out in front of me and I'm aware of everything,
Yeah.
they can't come from in front
Yeah.
because every time I'm talking to something, if it's like souls, dark things, I usually see them like in front of me or
Mhm.
like if we're using a camera, sometimes like I'll see them behind me just because if I'm looking at a camera,
Mhm.
I can see the reflection. But like if we're at a ghost location or something and I feel something is like coming up behind me,
Yeah.
that tells me that like, oh, this is something trying to sneak up on me because
Mhm.
other souls or people who are just trying to talk and it's not necessarily a negative thing don't
Mhm.
need to come from behind. And that is purely my own signs and
Yeah,
symbols for
'cause
that.
that doesn't happen for me.
Yeah.
When someone shows up behind me, I'm always aware of it.
Yeah. So like I'm aware of it, but it triggers that like
Yeah.
I that is how I
It's
know that it's
I
not a
don't
good thing.
perceive it as a negative
Yeah.
thing. It's not what my sign and symbol.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're watching this and you're like, "How do I do this?" Your signs and symbols are going to be different, and
Yeah.
developing your mediumship is going to help you to figure out what those are.
Mhm.
Because, like, again, for me, it's very much like I'm aware of the things that are around me generally, like 360 around me. I can just feel them
Yeah.
standing near me. And then it's usually like I go in and I'm like, oh, who are you? And that gives me information about them
Yeah.
because my natural instinct is anyone around me, I will read you instinctively and be like, do you mean me harm? Who are you? What's your
Yeah.
personality? What are you feeling right now? Are you safe to
Mhm.
be around? That is a
Yeah.
natural instinct for me, just as it's a natural instinct for you to be wary of people sneaking up on you behind your back.
Yeah.
It's like a naturalistic like instinct
Mhm.
to have that sort of response.
Yeah. And I don't know, I told our Patreons during mediumship circle, because if you guys don't know, we have Patreon, we do mediumship circle where we like talk about this kind of stuff more like in depth and like more
Mhm.
like kind of
Which
personal.
helps you realize your
Yeah.
gifts.
And we do it's almost like a little like workshop group where like we
Yeah,
talk about it, you get to practice it, and we can like do it together.
yeah.
And so like it's in a
So,
call with us.
if you're interested in
Do
developing that
that.
mediumship,
Join
join Patreon. It'll be in
the
the
show
show notes
notes and
down below.
description. Yeah. But I told our like Patrons in like
Mhm.
the last mediumship circle
Yeah.
because we were talking about clairsentience,
Mhm.
where when I was like first starting to also discern whether it was like my even just my clairs or even other entities, I have like my own mental checklist that I like prepared, like
Mhm.
made for myself, and I didn't necessarily write it down anywhere,
Yep.
but I've been thinking about like writing it down to help people since people have asked for it. But
I'm
if it
interested in your list.
but if it's like a like like an entity or like some sort of spiritual being that I'm unfamiliar with that
Mhm.
like I am trying to place it in the buckets, I'll like kind of like sort it in my own like little mental checklist and go
Mhm.
down and like mark all of the boxes that apply to this thing
Yeah.
through how I feel, my claircognizance, and the rest of my clairs, whatever it is.
Mhm.
Because sometimes like clairvoyance will help me with that too.
Mhm.
But I will check off those things, and whatever I check off will tell me like what it is, what it's trying to do, so things like that.
Yeah, because sometimes with mediumship, it's easier to be like told what to look for because
Hmm.
having this just huge, overreaching piece of information, you're like, okay, I know everything about it, but I don't know what you want to know about it. So it's kind of like you remember everything about your 16th birthday, but you can't recall it until someone asks a question or gives you a topic to
Yeah,
focus on. You don't know how to answer the question until that happens.
yeah. And that is also like that same checklist that I was talking about is also how I started to get more comfortable with mediumship in general. Because when
Mhm.
I first started,
Yeah.
it was, well, how do I know the information that I'm getting is coming from outside of me, from souls, deities, whatever, and not just in my head?
Mhm.
So I created that mental checklist to be like, where I would stop and be like, okay, I feel like I'm getting information. Is this, is the thoughts or things that I'm hearing, saying, whatever, does it feel like this is the way that I talk? Does it sound like me?
Mhm.
Because sometimes, like, if it's
Yeah,
my
energy signatures can be
yeah,
translated through sound.
yeah,
So it can be as simple as there's a different voice in your head. And that's how you know the difference between souls is because you recognize their voice.
yeah, so
Because that happens for me too.
yeah, so, like, for my spirit guides, their voices sound more similar to my own
Interesting.
because they are a part of me, which is why I which is why it was
That's
hard for me to, like, figure it out. So, I've had my spirit guides talk in a specific way.
hmm
So, even if I hear my own voice, if they say a specific phrase randomly, I know that that's my spirit guide. So that
yeah.
because it's it's easier for me to, like, I've been kind of figuring this out with my spirit guides because I've always felt like I struggle talking to them,
Well,
but it
that's why they sound like you is because you have a hard
yeah.
time like pulling them away from yourself and separating them.
Yeah, exactly.
hmm
So, like, my black spirit guide, like Candor, he, like, talks in, like, a very, like, goofy way about, like, "My liege," and, like, says funny things, but it sounds like me saying it.
Yeah.
But I don't talk like that,
Yeah.
so I know that's who it is, or, like,
hmm
Milo does that, Arlo, like, all of my spirit guides, like, I've kind of, like, had them have their own, like, distinct way of talking, so even if it sounds like my own voice, I know it's a spirit guide
hmm
because like you said, it's harder for me to separate my spirit guides from me because like they're associated to me. Whereas like deities, it very much sounds like an external voice,
Yeah.
like
hmm
almost like surround sound in my head. And it'll sound like very like masculine or feminine, or like they'll still talk in
hmm
a specific way. Like I was doing readings today for our James, and I was talking to Prometheus,
hmm
and though he talks
He sounds like Mufasa.
yeah, he talks in, like, a very, like, low, deep, like,
He kind of sounds
calm,
like
assertive, cool voice.
he sounds like the dude from God of War,
Kratos?
Kratos.
Yeah, but, like, very yeah, very kind of, like, low, somewhat monotone, like, very just, like,
powerful masculine
calm,
voice.
masculine,
Mhm.
but and, like, he's assertive, but not, like, aggressive.
Yeah.
Because like, Aries sounds somewhat similar, but
He's
he's
aggressive.
more aggressive when he talks. So it's just for me, it was just figuring out all of the, like,
Mhm.
little nuances within myself, and then, like,
Yeah.
it got so
Putting the
much easier
picture
to
together.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's because once you, like, figure out how your own brain works, because obviously I'm
Yeah.
talking a lot about clairsentience, because 'cause I'm very clairsentient,
Mhm.
so that is the easiest for me to know is through my
Yeah. So you can
clairsentience.
use your other clairs
Yeah,
like clairaudience because I do the same thing, but that's not something I rely on because I can only do it with people I know their voice already.
yeah,
So I do it with my spirit guides or like other spiritual beings that are associated to me that I hear normally because I'll recognize their voice.
yeah,
But if some new guy came in, I'm like, I don't know your voice. I can describe it, but I'm not going to like
yeah,
recognize you.
yeah.
So,
'Cause if I'm talking to, like, anyone and it's just, like, me doing it, not a
mhm,
reading for someone, it mostly gets filtered through, like, claircognizance,
mhm,
clairaudient, and clairsentience.
mhm.
But if I'm reading for other people, like, especially, like, deities I'm just talking about deities a lot, but I like doing deity
It's
stuff, so
easier for you.
it's the easiest one for me, so
Mhm,
talking, like, deities, um, I have deities give me, like, information in the way that is best for the other person,
mhm.
so it's easier for me to explain to them how to use it, so I don't have to play, like, a game of telephone of, like, "Okay, you're giving me information through clairsentience. This person isn't clairsentience,
Mhm.
so how would they?" I just cut out the middle part, and
They
if
just talk to you the same way they talk to the
yeah,
person they work with, the
yeah,
deity does.
so I don't always rely on clairvoyance with
Mhm.
deities.
Yeah,
So if I
which
am
is also another very common thing that happens with mediums when they do readings for other people.
yeah,
They will perceive things in the same
yeah.
way that the other person would.
Yeah, so if I'm doing a deity reading for someone who is more clairvoyant
Yeah.
than I am, I will like
Mhm.
be like I will see them more
Yeah.
clairvoyantly, and that gives me the additional information.
Because that's the information that's more important to
Yeah,
whoever you're reading. So that's why they give that to you.
yeah, because I've gotten like smells for
Mm.
people, which I'm not super comfortable with
Yeah.
aliens for
Same.
clairgustance, just because those I'm too autistic for that. I don't like
It's
smells or taste.
overstimulating.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but when I do, it at least gives me information of like, "Oh, I'm getting, like, a lot of smells right now. You are very clear, like, alien. This is
Mhm.
how you, like, do things." So, it's just learning how, like, you yourself, like,
Have the
think, how
yeah.
you process
Mhm.
information.
How your abilities work.
Yeah,
But with the six senses, like I said, taste and smell, you might taste or smell the difference between like different flavors, and that will help you discern entities. Or it can be like, this is a dark entity, or they have ill intentions. That's a bitter taste. Or you can have like seeing things, and you might be able to view people's energy signatures by just the way they look. So that
mhm,
would be like how we do it normally
yeah,
on a physical basis is I can see what you look like. I'm going to just like discern that it's you because you are always going to look like this to
yeah,
some extent.
yeah,
So that is an energy signature is what you look like. And I know that's very, very like obvious, but when you're talking to souls, it's
yeah,
not.
yeah, I don't know, 'cause that leads into what I was gonna say. You can practice those things and figure it out more by applying it to, like, actual physical
Hmm.
people around you
Yeah.
before you apply it
'Cause
to,
your
like
gifts work the same way
yeah,
you think as the same way that you're going to talk to souls and spirits.
yeah,
There's not a, like a difference. It's just they're not really there.
yeah,
So
so
you can't physically do it in the way you want to.
yeah, so next time you're around your family or, like, a group of friends,
Yeah.
just see how you would describe their energy to someone else. Like,
Yeah, and it's
how would you describe your mother's energy and, like, how they are as a person and how
and it
they
might
feel like to
be
us?
obvious
Yeah,
cuz people might hear you say that and think, "Oh, I just need to explain the feeling energy of it." But they also look a certain way. They do certain things. So
yeah,
you
they have
might have a
certain
specific
mannerisms.
experience with
Mhm.
them, and that's how you know that's their energy
You
signature.
might you might be able to tell that your mom is, like, in the house because you can smell her cooking or you can smell her perfume.
Yeah, like my mother's energy signature for a long time is the sound of car keys because every time she picked me up when I was a child, I knew she was in the building because her car keys sound like a very similar thing.
Yeah.
Autistic. Clear audience response.
Yeah.
But they might sound different, they may smell different, they may look different. Those things are also going to translate to your mediumship, and that's how you're going to help yourself discern entities. And that's one of the first things you do when you start developing your mediumship
Mhm.
is who am I talking to? That is the first thing you say or do when you do mediumship is, "Hi, how are you? This is me. Who are you?" Same thing happens when you meet someone
Yeah.
new.
Yeah.
That's how mediumship work. It's a conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
But understanding how your gifts work is going to help you figure that out. So how do you remember people? That's going to be a very big key of how your gifts are going to work. Because for me, when I remember people, I don't remember what they look like in the same way as if I'm looking at you.
Mhm.
I will remember key features of you, but the rest of it looks blurry or out of focus or it's just not there
Yeah.
because visual information is hard for me.
And for me, I remember how it feels within my body,
Hmm.
when I am, like, with you experiencing something.
Yeah. So I'll remember you by your voice. So, like, for example, when you're watching TV and you hear an actor's voice and they don't look how they normally look or they change their looks, you know immediately who that is just by their voice.
Mhm.
How you remember them is going to be how your gifts work on a mediumship basis. And that's going to help you discern entities or be able to, like, understand their energy signature.
Yeah. And also understand that if you feel like you are experiencing, like, I mean, using deities again,
Mm-hmm.
but we'll use Loki this time. If you think that you are experiencing Loki, and it is how, like, you think that he feels, but it does not align with someone else's
Yeah.
perception of Loki, that does not mean that either one of you are wrong.
Yeah.
You are just using your own personal, like,
You're
Claire's
interpreting.
biases. Yeah, you're interpreting the information in a way that helps you come to the conclusion.
Yeah, that
Like,
also translates to like physical human beings. Like some people might view me and are like, "Oh my God, you're the sweetest person ever." And then there's other people that are like, "I can just tell you don't like anyone or you don't like being there."
yeah,
Even though that's probably neither one of those things are probably me. You know what I'm saying? That is just other people's perception of who I am.
yeah,
And that's the same thing with discerning entities.
yeah,
So you saying, "Oh, well, this is how Loki is," versus someone else is completely different, doesn't mean that neither of you are talking to him. You're probably both talking to him. It's just how you feel about them because you're also projecting yourself into that.
yeah. Because when I was on, like, I had been working with Hades already, but I, like, got onto, like, witch talk on TikTok,
Yeah.
and I saw other people talking about Hades, and it kind of, like, made me take a step back because I was like, how they're describing Hades is not how I
Which is
experience.
what?
Um, a lot of people describe Hades as more, like, cold and rude,
Really?
for me, he is a more, like, warm, like,
He has like father
father figure.
time
Yeah,
type feeling.
like
Like he knows everything and he knows how to help guide you to certain things, but he has a very structured,
mhm,
solid, like wise sort of energy.
yeah. He's a very, like, calm, warm, and, like,
But
mature.
I also don't see him, like, laughing at, like, funny jokes type
Yeah,
things.
I don't either.
He's not gonna be like that.
Yeah, but some people view Hades as, like, the version of, like, Hades from, like, the movie Hercules, the
Mm,
animated one, of, like,
scary.
that kind of, like, scary, and he's intimidating, and he's rude, and he'll fuck your shit up if you do something wrong. And so, like, I saw people, like, talking about him in
Mhm.
ways that didn't align with how I
Yeah.
people also use, like, colors, like, he's associated to, like, blue and fire, whereas for me, I associate Hades to, like, warm, like, greens and reds, like,
Mm,
jewel t
same.
jewel tones. He's more, like, earthy and grounded versus,
Mhm.
like, Hellflame, whereas
Yeah.
and that's how other people describe him. So, like, when I saw other people talking about him,
Would
at
you
first,
question if you were talking to him?
I questioned if I was, I questioned if they were, so I was like, "Hold
Yeah.
up, like, this
What the
isn't
heck are you.
this isn't, like, how I work with Hades.
Yeah.
Am I doing it wrong? Are they doing it wrong? Are they actually talking to Hades?" So
Projections.
but instead of just automatically, like, going to that person and being like, "That's not how Hades is, you're wrong,"
Yeah.
I one, I stopped and I asked Hades. I was like, "Hey, is this like do you work with them? Is this how you work with this person?"
Yeah.
And he was like, "Yes, this is what they need from
Mhm.
me. So this is what they get. You would not benefit from this hell flame cold thing. You need someone that is like more warm grounded
Yeah.
because he's been around me since I was a kid.
Mhm.
So like it just depends on what you need and how like you interpret their energy. But both of those can be right.
Mhm.
So I think that is like also a big thing that I would say is like to remember if you're like getting into this type of stuff is other people are going to have other experiences and interpretations
Mhm.
of beings, energy, entities, whatever.
Yeah.
And it does not mean either one of you are wrong. It does not mean that you don't know who you're talking to or you're being tricked.
Yeah.
You are just experiencing things.
Yeah, that's why we give the disclaimer when we do spirit guide
Mhm.
readings. Which, if you guys are interested in spirit guide readings, we offer private readings, and that link will also be down below. But when we do spirit guide readings, we give the disclaimer of our interpretation may be different than other mediums. Other mediums may see your spirit guides as people, but we might see them as like mythological beasts.
Yeah.
And that's just our interpretation of what their energy is here for you, for them to help you and
Hmm.
guide you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same entity energy that we are both viewing, but we are viewing it with our own perceptions.
Hmm.
So discerning entities is something that is learned over time, but it's one of the things that you learn very early on with mediumship because, again, when you talk to someone, you ask, "Hi, my name is this. Who are you?" Because, again, names can be an energy signature.
Yeah. And you can also, because at least for me, like when I started figuring out discerning things, I just knew, like, in my body what was happening, like, I could just feel it clairsentiently,
Hmm.
but if that's not how it works for you, you can also assign specific signs and symbols
Hmm.
to it
Yep.
to get triggered to so you know.
Yeah, like
S
naming your spirit guide Houdini or Sakuna.
Yeah. So, if you, like, want to get into, like, deity work and you're like, "Well, how do I know who I'm talking to?"
Hmm.
You can be like, "Okay, if it's a Celtic deity, I want you to make me feel like there's I don't know, like warm, like my shoulders are
Hmm.
warm." Or I want you to I want to visually see like a Celtic cross or something. So
Yeah.
that's how I know. Like you can assign different signs and symbols to help lead you to that information if
Hmm.
you're struggling to understand how your own gifts work and
Yeah.
how like to discern those things just like naturally on your own, you can assign your own signs and symbols to things.
Yeah. One of the things that we teach people, like in mediumship circle and stuff like that, is when you are starting out with mediumship, a lot of times you're going to benefit from a yes or no sign that you have like determined. So once you figure out what your yes and no is, now you can ask spirit all these questions and they're going to give you validation immediately of this is it, this is not it, and you're a little bit off.
Can I say something controversial?
What?
I don't think I've ever actually had a like solid yes or no sign and symbol for myself.
Yeah, but you also have a checklist.
Okay, you know what? That's fair. Never mind, that's fair.
You don't do yes and no, you ask a checklist worth of questions.
Yeah, I like
I don't have a checklist. I have yes and no questions that I ask.
yeah, I pretty much like do like a like small interview with every single thing. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
you check all of these boxes, you're this, got it. So
Mm-hmm. So if you have questions and you start off with mediumship, it's a lot easier to have a checklist, be able to
yeah,
ask questions and get validation. That's what I'm talking about.
no, I
It's easier to tell people yes or no because it's like, just figure out these two signs. Don't remember 20 questions. Remember these two signs.
that should honestly tell you a lot about me. 'Cause, like I don't have a yes or no. I have an entire
Yeah,
checklist.
because you did the same thing. It was just different because you didn't know where to focus.
Yeah,
So when you start in mediumship, you're like, I don't know what to ask. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do this. It's like learning
yeah.
how to date someone.
I guess
The questions to
yeah.
ask
I
people.
guess it also was slightly different for me because I came from like the witchcraft deity work side of spirituality, so I had
Hmm.
already like I'd already had extensive like knowledge of like deity works and like discerning deities and energy without knowing that I was using like
Yeah.
clairs or mediumship or anything like that.
Mhm.
I was told that you couldn't talk to deities, so like that's a whole other
Mhm.
story. So sometimes like my personal perception of like how these things work, I feel like doesn't fully align with others
Mhm.
because I very much kind of blend like witchcraft, paganism, deity work with mediumship things
Yeah.
because just mediumship isn't for me, but just witchcraft isn't for me either. So it's like a blend. It's my spiritual sandwich, as I like to say.
So people that are witches don't do mediumship.
They don't knowingly do it, I would say. Because I mean, like we said, everyone's a medium, so like they're doing
I
mediumship.
feel like I follow the witches that talk to the things they work with, but that's not considered mediumship.
No, the when
Because I'm
I
like,
was like getting into things, I also like got into deity work because I found like friends locally
do the same
who
thing.
did the same things, were in the same
Yeah.
thing. So they were the ones who kind of introduced me, and then I started doing research. But in a lot of my research, it was like if you think you're talking to a deity, you're not, 'cause they don't have time to talk to you. They won't talk to you.
Right.
If you like,
But I've also watched TikToks that are like they like goat religion in a sense of like, oh, you're talking to your gods or deities and like talking to Jesus, and then you go into witchcraft paganism, and the person's like, hold on, let me like get with Hades and like figure out what we should do. And the person was like, wait, you're actually like getting answers from your god? And they're like, yeah.
yeah. So like they get answers and things, but I would say at least like from what I've like
Mhm.
witnessed, and obviously like witchcraft is even still very broad in how it
Well,
works. Like
yeah.
there's so many types of witches and deity work is very like subjective, but
Yeah.
a lot of what I've seen is they will like ask for answers and guidance on things, but they very much just get like a yes or no or a sign or symbol of
Mm-hmm.
like when I was
Gotcha.
starting to like know I was on the right path, I like wanted Hades to send me a sign or symbol. So that was crow feathers on the ground. So I would get
Gotcha.
crow feathers. So that was the answer versus like direct communication
Okay,
that I
makes
could
sense.
do now, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Because
So
I was always confused because I was like, people talk about witchcraft being so physical based,
yeah.
but I also feel like they're talking to their deities, so I'm confused. It makes sense.
So it would be like an example of it would be you would go and like pray or go to your altar and like give an offering and ask what Hades for, I'm looking for an answer to this or some guidance on this to help to let me know that I'm like on the right path doing things.
Got you.
Send me a sign and then like send me the sign of a crow. And then the next day, if a crow is at your window,
Yeah,
that's how you would know.
great, got it.
That
So
is,
you already determined signs and symbols prior to that,
yeah.
prior to doing like mediumship
Hmm.
fully.
Yeah, because I started when I like started with like witchcraft and things, I like, which is funny 'cause I hate birds, but crows became like my like some of my signs and symbols as well as like butterflies
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. So if you guys watch the Bubble Park vlog, you can see the specific place where I like had my first
Your
spiritual
spiritual
awakening.
awakening where
And I was
you
like,
heard Hades for the first
oh
time.
my gosh,
Oh my
oh
god.
my
Oh my
gosh.
god.
So there was very much like signs and symbols of like crows. So like crows would follow me around and I'd be like, oh, that is like what it was. And you can do that with mediumship too, because I feel like
Mm-hmm.
people do that with mediumship. But
I do.
then like, I got into my head of like, okay, I'm seeing crows constantly
Yeah.
now.
Mm-hmm.
Was that actually a sign
Do
or
I have
symbol
to
for
change
me?
my sign and symbol again? Yeah.
Yeah, because that is very much like,
I get a lot of people that tell me that. I feel like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like I
So then I start making rules for those signs and symbols.
Yeah, because I don't know, like I was like, I want foxes to be one of my signs and symbols. And then I would scroll through Instagram and kept just
Fox,
getting
fox,
fox
fox,
after
fox.
fox after fox. So
Yeah,
I was like,
because
oh,
rainbows are mine, and I was like, okay, I can only see physical rainbows. F off.
yeah. So it And then once I realized, like, mediumship, I was like, "Oh, I don't need those physical signs and symbols as
Mhm.
much." I still get them,
Yeah.
but I don't rely on them as much as I did witchcraft because a lot of the physicality of witchcraft, I felt like bogged and slowed me down personally
Yeah.
because there were too many, like, physical rules of how
Mhm.
things needed to be done.
Yeah.
So now I very much blend the 2 of them,
Mhm.
which I'm teaching M how to get into
I
witchcraft
just
more.
wanna do witchcraft.
I'm teaching M the witchcraft things. I also
Yeah.
don't practice witchcraft in the way most people do.
Yeah, which is, "Let me follow every exact detail." Riker's like, "This seems good. Let's make it my own and do whatever the fuck I want anyways." Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Fuck around and find out sort of energy.
Yeah, like, if I'm doing a, like, prosperity thing, I might look up, like,
Some
some, like
ideas.
I might look up to see, like, other spells or things that people have done that have worked in the past for them, or
Right.
even look up, like,
And then we take what
correspondences.
resonates and leave the rest.
Yeah, that is pretty much how I do view spirituality
Fuck
in
around,
general.
find out. Witchcraft. You
I
should
don't
not listen to us, but maybe you should listen to us.
well,
I don't know.
I think for me, I don't know, like, I will use, like, if I'm doing a prosperity spell, I like to use citrine, and
Mhm.
citrine is often used in prosperity
There's
spells.
citrine in my pocket.
That's my citrine that is in your pocket.
It likes me.
I know, I'm surprised you haven't lost it yet, but that is
'Cause
my
it
piece of
likes
citrine.
me. It falls out when I need it. When I need to not lose it is the key word to that.
That is my citrine. Um, but I use citrine for those things. Um, but I might grab other things that aren't or, like, aren't commonly associated with,
Yeah,
like,
you talk to things
prosperity.
with your mediumship,
Yeah.
and they tell you what to do, and it's really weird. Anyways.
Yeah. I don't know, so, like, if I like, when was still, like, in California, like, cleansing my mom's house
Mhm.
because, like, there was, like, some weird shit going on there, like,
Mhm.
fly infestation, weird noises, nightmares, like,
It was me. You didn't
it's
know me.
true.
It was me.
I knew you at
Oh, is that them?
well, I didn't know you personally at that time, no.
It was me.
It was you.
Mhm.
Got it. I just started, like, grabbing a bunch of random shit, and my mom
Yeah.
was like, "How do you know what to do?" And I was like, "I don't know, I just do."
Someone tells me in my brain hole.
Yeah, 'cause I was like I grabbed, like, eggshells and, like 'cause I guess that was for, like, the protection thing. Cause like, I usually do smoke cleansing, which makes sense with who I am.
Mhm.
S Smoke,
Smoke
haunted
and
smoke and
mirrors.
mirrors, ha once I'm the smoke and smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
So I really like incense smoke and things like that. So I, like, cleansed the house and then, like, to, like, ward and protect it so, like, whatever was happening wouldn't keep happening.
Yeah.
I, like, grabbed a bunch of things and, like, I didn't bring them with me when I moved in, but I should have because I had, like, full, like, little jars full of, like, all sorts of herbs and things, like
You should have. You would have a lot
eggshells.
easier time making candles.
A lot of it was
Mom,
just like,
can you send us this?
"Hey, mom, wanna send me this too?" Which what if I asked her?
I know.
Or most of it is stuff that we have in the kitchen anyway, so it's not a big deal. But I just grabbed a bunch of random things.
Mhm.
And I guess I shouldn't say random because, like, afterwards, like, after
You
I do
look them up
everything,
and
I look it
somehow
up and
it's
I'm like,
right.
"Oh, like, that's for protection, that's for banishing, that's for
You
this, and
listened
this."
to your intuition.
Yeah, so I don't know. I very much do, like, witchcraft things by just fuck it, we ball.
Yeah. I
And
mean, I did one of my first spells without your help because before
Mhm.
you were like, I watched you like do protection wardy stuff, and I was like, I could do that. I don't know what I did still. But I did my first spell type thing, and it was fun because I did mirror stuff because smoke
Mhm.
and mirrors. But
But yeah, I don't know. It's very much like
like the Morrigan was telling me what to
Mhm.
do.
Yeah.
Because to
I
me, I'm like, if I was a
well,
witch, I would just talk to the deities to tell me what to do. But apparently, that doesn't happen like that. This is an entirely different topic on what
I
we're
know
supposed
so
to be
we've
talking
gone
about.
discerning
But
entities, but
yeah,
witchcraft.
witchcraft. If you guys want
Witchcraft.
us to talk more about witchcraft, let us know down below.
Yeah.
But
Emma's getting me back into my witchcraft era. I haven't like fully
I
done
say
things in a
so.
while, but I've done like I don't know. I did a prosperity spell like 4 years ago, like
Hmm.
back in like 2020.
We're
Um,
gonna do another one. So I just want to learn how to do everything.
But I did one with this, like, with the sole thing of, like, I need money and I want a job.
Yeah.
A couple months later, got a job, started getting money, like, everything that, like, put the intentions into that spell worked.
Did you do that on on the new moon? New
I
moon?
don't think I did that on any
You
moon.
just did it?
Mm,
Yeah. I want to do a prosperity spell.
'cause there's too many rules in witchcraft and, like,
Yeah.
witchcraft,
Well,
that's
yeah.
for me.
I'm just like full on. I want to do everything
Mhm,
because we did witchcraft like a couple nights ago, and I did my first spell, and I was like, oh, my brain feels good. Let me do like 1,000 more, which
mhm.
apparently again is not allowed. You're not supposed to do that. I don't know.
It's
I'm a newbie.
normal people,
I'm a baby
I say normal
witch.
people, but there's I don't know, because when I was, like, getting into it, it's like, you shouldn't do this kind of stuff, like, you shouldn't do like, you should do one spell and then, like, let it
One
take
spell a month or something.
let it take effect, like, let your body rest, 'cause it's gonna take a lot out of you
It
physically.
didn't take anything out of me. I'm ready for more.
Yeah, but we're so off topic.
It's fine. We're gonna do
It's
a
what we do.
podcast on witchcraft here soon. 'Cause even if I say no, I don't want. I don't care. I want
Evan
to
just
talk
wants to
about
talk
it.
about witchcraft.
Yeah.
Her into it.
Should probably wait until I do my second spell, and then we can talk about my
Mhm.
second spell.
Yeah, we can do a prosperity spell.
Great.
I
We got a jar for it, so
Hades helps. Hades helped me with my prosperity spell.
I still feel like we're supposed to do it on the new moon.
Okay,
Yeah.
we can do it on the new moon.
Mm-hmm.
I got lazy with following the moon cycles because I'm like, "Ugh,"
Too much effort.
yeah, I'm like, that's only like if you're doing it just on the full or new moon, it's only like 2 times every like month.
Yeah. They just tell me timing is really important right now
Yeah,
for everything.
yeah, that makes sense with what we're doing. But
Because prior to that, I would be like, no, we need to do it right now. I need to watch it. I need to do it. I
yeah,
need to have my
I was
eyes
the
all
type of
over it.
person where I'd be like
Do it.
I cleansed and protected my mom's house on a random Saturday during the day. It was midday Saturday.
Yep. I
I
mean, the first time I had you do anything, I was like, oh my God, can you do that? And then immediately we were starting to do it, and it was like 12 o'clock at night, and I was like, this is great. You look great. You have like a full get up on. You're putting random shit from my cabinet into this, like,
my motor and pestle.
that,
Yeah.
putting water in it, and then you're taking a paintbrush and like painting the house with it. I don't fucking know what you did, but that was at like 12 o'clock at night.
Yeah, I did keep my I have like a whole like accoutrements garb stuff that I
I have
wear when I'm
no
doing
idea
witch.
what that means. But okay.
Like
Like
when
a veil. I know you, I
yeah,
saw a veil on
yeah,
your
I veil I wear that like thing that you saw me wearing the
yeah.
other night. I wear that. If I'm doing like serious stuff, I wear that. I don't know, it's just to make me
Feel like you're
feel more connected to things. Like
yeah.
I wear like my protection rings. I'll usually wear like more of my crystal necklaces and things.
Mhm.
That's that's when I get more into like the physical
Witchy
aspects, yeah,
things.
witchy of things, just because it helps me feel like I'm connecting to it more,
Yeah.
but it's not needed.
But yeah. So if you guys want us to talk more about witchcraft, let us know in the comments.
It's gonna happen anyways because M
Might not
wants
happen
to, if you
anyways, but
can't tell by how
we might want to do it after my second spell, so I have more to talk about. But I'm also gonna ask you questions about more spells that you've done, but that's beside the point.
I haven't done that many spells.
Well, then we're gonna have to do a whole bunch, Riker.
I've mostly done prosperity spells. I've done them for other people.
Well, what else can we do? Lots of things, right?
There's
Right, we're gonna do a shitload of spells for no reason other than to talk about it in a podcast. So if you're interested in that, let us know.
We're also gonna start grimoires.
Yeah, we really want to start grimoires and like make digital downloads so you can download like pages and add it to your grimoires. What's a grimoire?
A grimoire is almost like in witchcraft, it's almost like your like journal book where you can like detail any like notes,
So it's like
experiences,
the spell
information.
book thing from
Yeah.
Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Yeah, like it's almost or it's like a book of shadows like
Oh yeah, yeah.
thing.
I know what the Book of Shadows. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Yeah, we want to make stuff like that, but that's not what we were talking about during this podcast.
Discerning
So
entities.
we were talking about discerning entities. If you guys have different ways that you discern entities. Like maybe you hear different voices, maybe you see them glitchy, maybe you see their eyes glow.
There are people who are like, I know the difference between my spirit guides because they all have a different accent.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like one has like an Australian accent, one has this.
And then you talk to me, and I'm like, I don't hear people's accents, I feel them, and I don't know how to explain that to you. But let us know all of those details down below because we want to hear how you guys decipher energy signatures, and it will also help everyone else to try to learn how they decipher energy signatures as well. So, if you guys have any of those details, flood the comments with it. But if you like this type of content, make sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell. If you're on our podcast, follow the podcast, do all of the things and
Leave a good
whatever,
rating
whatever.
for
Yeah.
us. Yeah.
And we'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye.